Hello and welcome everybody to the Beacon of Light podcast this evening. And tonight we have an awesome guest, and her name is Miss Dr. Tina Welsome. And today we're going to be learning all about wellness, love, and so on and so forth. So I can't wait to jump into that. But before we do, let's jump into this.
I'm April Tribe Juke. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. I believe we are all made with light, and light is hope. This podcast brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now.
And we are back. So welcome everybody. If you are here popping up live, please, be a part of the conversation and let us know where it is that you're watching from, as we are broadcasting from different parts of the country tonight. So Tina, share with us a little bit about how your journey in writing this book started.
So I have been an avid reader my whole life. I read anything, everything. I think there's only one book I can ever think I didn't finish, and it was actually an Oprah's book pick. Don't remember why, it just didn't capture me. But I do think that stories help bring out the empathy in us and help us connect with each other as human beings. And when my marriage ended, I started journaling. I never had time because I was too busy reading and too busy writing academic papers as a doctor of physical therapy. And I started journaling just for myself to gain clarity, to get my emotions out, to help me make sense of the things that I was feeling and going through. And at the advice of one of my therapists, he encouraged me to share my story with people so that there might be somebody else out there who was going through something similar, that I could possibly share what I had been through, so they knew they weren't alone, that they knew there was hope, that there was a way out of it, that there was a future for them. And so that is kind of how I started writing my story. And along the way, it morphed into me writing chapters in several multi-author books and opening a publishing house as well. So now I can help empower other people tell their stories as well.
Excellent. And in that empowerment of story, what is it that you have discovered?
Well, I think the first thing I definitely discovered was, I found out that I had codependent tendencies, and that I was absolutely, as Brene Brown would say, a shame-based human being. I didn't feel ashamed of an action. I felt ashamed of who I was. And Brene Brown talks about how when you bring that shame out into the light and you share it with others, it makes it less heavy to carry. It makes it less monstrous, less scary. And so I know for me, sharing my story added a lens of reality to it, gave me perspective, allowed me to recognize that I wasn't alone with what I was dealing with, and allowed me then to help others with who might also have that same experience. So my story could not only heal me, but could heal the people that I shared it with.
And in that healing process, what did you find that maybe surprised you?
Um, you know, I think the biggest revelation was probably the most painful one. When your marriage ends, right? You always have his version, her version, or her version, whichever, but the two versions, and then maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And I definitely was somebody who took a lot of responsibility for everything, and that's probably not fair to myself. And I've always been somebody who is always the first one to say they're sorry, even when something really isn't my fault. Like, I'm sorry that your battery died and your lights won't turn on your car, even though I didn't do that. But I think the bottom line for me was when I got to a point as I was trying to understand who I was and who I authentically wanted to be in life, when I got to a point that the words that came out of my mouth were, "I'm sorry for being me." That was probably the most awful sentence I've ever uttered and felt in my life.
That's very, very revealing because when you break it down to know that, like you said, shame based just for yourself, and when you finally, unfortunately, admit something like that, that you are not pleased with yourself or you're ashamed of yourself or for just being who you are, that is something I think you're at that you're at ground zero. All you do is build up.
Right.
So how did you go from that ground zero and not go into the negativity? Or did you, and how did you rise back up to start building yourself up? Because you are a doctor, you have a book, you have other things happening. So I don't imagine you stayed there in that victim place for very long.
I think I stayed longer than I would have liked, longer than I would ever wish for anybody else. Um, I think, at first, when I was at rock bottom, I think the thing that kept me going was my three sons. I wanted to fix myself, heal myself, cure myself, be a better version of myself for them. I felt that they deserved more than who I was. Um, I didn't really know how to do that. I knew that was my goal. It really started with, the first chapter of my book is about self-care, and not the self-care of, chocolate cake and go to the spa and have a drink with the girls, but the self-care of making sure that you hydrate and that you eat for yourself and that you sleep well and that you manage your emotions and your stress, that you allow yourself to feel them, that you have compassion for yourself. Um, and I had never done that. I had never really even put myself on the to-do list of all those things you mentioned, being a mom, being a doctor, being a professor, being a wife. I was not on the to-do list at all. So, in my mind, I didn't matter to other people, but I didn't really matter enough to myself to even put myself on the list.
Very powerfully said, not putting yourself on the list. And I think it's really interesting. Where did you place yourself on the list when you finally said, "Okay, I'll put my name on the list"?
At
Was
the
it a
bottom. And sometimes I'm still not on it. I have to, awareness is only one part of the solution, right? You kind of know that you should exercise, you should sleep, you should eat well, you should take care of yourself. But knowing is very different from actually changing those subconscious thought patterns and the habits and the negative spirals that would show up when things, went south. So yeah, I'd still say for the most part, I'm after everyone else. Um, but I try to bring myself up at times, when they're busy, then I do something for me. So
so, and that's a start, right? Because
yes.
in the progress of this, we're not going to have that um, overwhelming overnight change all at once. I think it would kill us because we wouldn't be used to it.
Yeah.
It took us, half of our lifetime to develop these habits out of your own safety, out of your own um, survival, and to be aware. It's like, oh, that's the road ahead. Start here.
Mhm.
And that's fine if, as long as you're moving forward,
Yeah.
that's really a thing. So I want to emphasize that with everyone out there. Sometimes we look at the list, or we look at the labels of people. Oh, she's this or he's that, and I could never. And wait, hold. Guess what? If you just look beside you on that journey, oh, you're at my oh, want to hold hands? All right, let's go together.
Yep.
You're really surprised how true that is. And what I think is, if we reach over and say, "Do you want to hold my hand?" You'll walk a little bit further.
Definitely.
You mentioned therapy and things
Mhm.
of that nature, and so was that something you had started prior to all of this awareness and possibly the divorce, or was all of this afterwards?
Um, that's interesting. As a doctor of physical therapy, we are exposed to cognitive behavioral therapy and motivational inquiry and behavior change models and things like that. So I think I've always had a growth mindset. I've always been open to learning things. I think prior to my divorce or separation, I think, I read a lot of parenting books because to me, if there was something that somebody else knew that I could use with my three children being three different beings, I was always welcome, willing to learn it. We do a lot of group dynamic work in the program I teach in. So that is something else I'd spent a lot of time in. What didn't go over so well when I brought the nonviolent communication type talk home into the house. My ex was not a fan of that and the psychobabble. Um, I did not, I had tried to go to couples therapy multiple times at multiple incidents in my marriage. My ex was never interested. I finally started going to therapy, just traditional talk therapy, for myself. Probably, I think I had my fourth session when my ex left, and I realized that was the opportunity to let him go and to really be there for myself and to choose to love myself over sacrificing myself to love him.
That's really powerful. The sacrifice of self to love someone else in unhealthy ways really can determine lifestyles, how children see their family of origin and what are they going to do and how are they going to implement it. And then seems like we spend our lifetime trying to fix some of these pieces, and then there's also time of peace. So I think when when we're stuck within our fear or within the lies that we tell ourselves or within the pain, I call that a comfort cage. People call
Mhm.
it comfort zone. I'm like, oh honey, no.
Mhm.
Sorry, no, no. If you want to start moving, you got to get into that learning zone.
Yes, into the discomfort, yeah.
Yes, and it's just like any kind of thing. It can have times of euphoria. It can have these just whoa, running back to that cage because I know that's a safe place. Healthy or not, I'm going back there. It's just these moments that working through them is very very supportive.
Yeah.
So I know many people in the audience express some type of place of faith. And was that any kind of part of your journey?
Yeah, it definitely was. It's interesting. You mentioned, my 8 keys of wellness. And for me, those 8 things that kind of make us whole or holistic or integrated are our heart, so kind of how we feel about things, our mind, what we think, our body, of course, that carries it all around, our soul, which is to me kind of like our divine being or where we're centered or, the crux of who we are and our spirituality. And in my mind, as I worked through that, it was like, oh, I'm Catholic. And I moved on. And then, my next 4 are more external. So it's the interaction of you with everyone else. So your social wellness or your relationships. And then your financial wellness is your time, your energy, your financial resources. And then environmentally, what do you surround yourself with? So noisy, crowded versus quiet, calm environments, or what people do you surround yourself with, or, things like that, or the global environment, or, where you choose to live, rural or city. And then I have your passion or your purpose or your life role. And so for me, I look at those are kind of the 8 pieces. 4 of them are more internal, 4 of them are more external. That kind of, if we look at those, we can look at somebody and say, all right, where are you fully expanded? Where are you abundant? And where are you maybe limited? And I think for me, my first route through with the spirituality piece was yes, I believe in God. And yes, I have a religion. And I also practice yoga and, whatever. It wasn't until I was at an event with Gina DeVee, who wrote The Audacity to Be Queen. And she actually discusses and shares her faith and her spirituality a lot. And she is a psychologist by training. And what I realized was kind of where I was at in my own personal development and relationships is that I have a very hard time identifying what I want and need and communicating it to anyone and asking for help. And it really dawned on me that that carried over into my relationship with God and the divine as well. I only ever prayed to say thank you. I'm a very grateful person. I always look for the silver linings, but I never would ask for help. I would never pray to say, "Can you support me? Can you be there with me? Can you help me?" And so I think that was actually probably the last piece of my own wellness that I kind of confronted and started expanding. And that has actually made a tremendous difference to me.
That's really, really interesting because you usually don't hear that part of my prayers were just about gratitude and thankfulness. Usually you hear I had no prayers or it was the help me prayer. So to even put that on the lowest bottom of uh, the divine can't even help me, or however you thought about it,
I think I thought I wasn't worthy. He
it's
had better he or she has better things to do than worry about my nonsense is how I kind of feel.
very, very interesting. And now you said that in building that relationship, improving that, you said that it kind of maybe shone some light on some other places of how to be more aware or
Mhm.
take action on things. So part of your wholeness, it was 8 pieces, the 4 internal, the 4 kind of external. What is something that people, when they take your courses or read your book, mention to you that was a challenge for them? Is there kind of a trend or is it so varied?
I do think it's variable. I think I find that most people are very focused on the the vocational wellness or their business or their career, and then they are focused on the physical wellness, right? I want to eat better, I want to get in shape, I want to feel better, I want to be healthier. And I don't think they really realize how much being in tune with their emotions and emotional regulation, or maybe they've done some mindset work, but they really haven't gotten to the subconscious beliefs that they're holding on to that they maybe aren't aware of. um, some people are spiritual, some are not. Everybody wants more finances, but they don't really understand their relationship to money. So that's something that sometimes has to be explored. And I find the one that is the most fascinating to me, that I think is also the most fascinating to others, or the one that they wish they could fix the most, but they recognize that it's a struggle, is the relationship piece. Because I do think that when we struggle with our relationship to ourself and our self worth, we can only meet people at the level we've met ourselves. So if we're not feeling worthy, if we don't know how to love ourselves, if we don't know our own mind and we can't communicate it, it really puts a barrier between us and the ones that we love. And so I think that really comes down to it for me, is that that's the area that I think we didn't get in school. We didn't learn in religion class. We don't always hear about. And some people have found their person and they're not happy. Some people are still looking for their person and they think they'll never be happy. But really, I think that that happiness and love and acceptance has to come from within first for us to be able to have good relationships with others.
I agree. It's not about the situation, the circumstances you find yourself in. It's about how you are going to, respond or interact with the people or circumstances around you. I know it's really, really easy easy to get sucked back into bad habits or whatever. And I know for myself, if I start down, I have to really be thinking and wait, hold, wait. Remember where you're going. Oh, okay. Back it up. Put it in reverse. Turn, my turn, and just kind of try again. And I'm very happy with myself to understand that I can give permission. I think before, I remember I would where I lived before down in Texas. I had a long commute, not very many miles. It was a long commute with all of the traffic. And so I would take that time to talk, to discuss, to kind of have that prayer, kind of have those things rolling around in my mind and talking maybe out loud because I was driving both of my deaf girls home and they're in the back seat and can't really sign and watch the road. Yeah. So I'm like, this is my time.
Mhm.
Shorten the story, April. Okay. And as I would do these things, I could find myself like I like thought I was doing a lot of examination. Then I moved to a 6-minute commute. And I remember getting to there's two lights. I
Mhm.
got to the light and I was starting into the habit of examining the day and what went wrong or what could I do or what could I or the poor me started to kind of popcorn up and I'm like, I only got one light left. And the thought was, then just let it go.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That
It was
is
that simple all along?
okay. And so I did. I just kind of left it there. And as I went through the light, I could feel it kind of like leave the car. And I'm like, wow. So really good that awareness and the timing. I thought it was always going to be this amount of time and it takes time. Yes, I'm not discounting time, but sometimes you can kind of pick it up a bit.
Hustle it up, yeah.
And so that was encouraging.
Mhm.
And I remember just gleaning onto that. So, in your amount of time that you've had with this book, and now you are writing another book,
Mhm.
what have you discovered with in this whole process?
Well, I think what you said is true. I mean, you or I or anyone, we're never going to not be triggered in our lifetime. No matter if we're healed or we're fixed or we're fabulous or things are easy, something's always going to come up. And I think that knowing that you can handle it when it comes up and that each time, I feel like it got bigger. Like you said, it took you longer to get through it. And then you could get through it in two lights. And then I feel like there's times where I can get through it in just one deep thought and one deep breath of like, I'm inhaling this and I'm blowing it out because I don't need to deal with it. So I feel like every time I kind of cycle through something, what I find is my awareness comes quicker, my self-regulation comes quicker, my ability to find the lesson in the trigger. I hate the word trigger. I don't know why, but the word bothers me. Not getting triggered, because I think triggers are good for us. I think they're learning opportunities, but I think the the quickness or the ease with which I find that meaning, it just is so much quicker now. And it's like, okay, and what's next? Usually at least I can kick it off with a good night's sleep. And the next day I'm like, all right, I'm back. Let's do over next day.
Right, that do over. I remember thinking, just watching a particular um, show as of late, and the character has kind of risen and from the place where they were, and now they're kind of with a group that is just really fantastic, and learning is happening, and a lot of growth and amazing things. But a trigger happens, which puts this particular character back,
Yeah.
and maybe because of the fall,
Mhm.
feeling like this character has now fallen and that's it. Kind of get a one-time shot at things, and if you fall back to the place, well, it was fun while that lasted, but now I'm back and I can't. That's it. And then realizing, guess what? Mistakes are going to continue to happen. So I think that's
Yeah.
really a clarifying part, is that in our healing, in the journey, you're still walking. There's still things to trip over. There's still potholes to fall down and skin your knee, but you can keep going because you can bounce back faster. You can, and faster meaning the awareness comes
Mhm.
before years and years or multiple sessions of therapy or whatever. You get that. That's part of the healing, because you only have to backtrack a bit to go, oh, wait, I know this, and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So I really encourage everyone out there with her book, Loved, that living the authentic life for yourself is something really, really important that you can find. So, Tina, with your book, what is something in there that you would like to share with the world tonight?
I think that it's important. I think we talk about self-care and self-love and, having that growth mindset and being willing to, I always say, fail forward and fabulously because we're going to fail. So just do it in a forward direction and make it fabulous and tell a great story out of it. But I think that the authenticity piece, is a lot more challenging than just saying I want to be authentic. I think there is, first of all, figuring out who you authentically are, not who you think you should be, not who you were maybe raised to be, not who you think society thinks you should be, but really who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in this one life that you're given? And then the challenge, I think, is to actually show up as that, because I think we do want to be loved and we do want to be approved of. And it's very scary to be authentically you because you are being open and vulnerable and you don't know what the response is going to be. But I think for me, I would like to encourage people to be courageous, to show up that way, because if you're not showing up as your authentic self, the love or the approval or the success you're having isn't genuine. And that's why I think it doesn't feel good to you because you're doing it from a false place or you're not doing it either the way that you want to or at the speed you want to. Maybe you want to go faster or slower, or you're holding back or you're hiding. And so I think just recognizing, like you said, that comfort zone is a comfort cage. And being authentic is not comfortable, but it's certainly rewarding. And it gets more comfortable the more you live in that zone, and then you push yourself to the next level. So,
Right, I agree with that. You definitely get to push yourself to those next levels, and knowing that the self-love is there, the opportunity for so many wonderful things, and failing forward in a forward motion. You can get up, and we all have stories. I always think of it as like, wow, I got a new story. Sometimes I think, will I run out of stories?
no.
Nope. Nope, I will not run out of stories. Hello there. We're so grateful you guys are popping in here this evening. And so, Tina, with our last 3 minutes here, anything you want to share with your new book that's going to be that you're writing and coming out? Something that might be something where people are like, ooh, I want to see what that is too.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think the relationship piece is really key to me because I have found that as I kind of figured out who I desired to be or who I was and how that I desired to show up authentically, that's a challenge for the people around you, your mom and dad, your siblings, your spouse, your children. I know my children have said, "We like the old mom, the one that was always happy, the one that never cried, the one that, never lost her cool." Yeah, well, she wasn't happy. So, I think that as you become more your authentic self, it's going to cause a ripple effect. And maybe the people in your life that were benefiting from you not having boundaries or you not speaking your truth, it might be uncomfortable for them. And it might actually cause some people to fall out of your life. But I think it will also magnetize and draw in the people that are supposed to be there. And I think, when I speak of relationships, I think we always think of our intimate partner relationship. But I think, I have a relationship with my mailman, not in a sexual way. He delivers my mail. We're friendly. I have relationships with my neighbors. I have relationship with the woman in the checkout line that I usually go through in the grocery store because I enjoy her. So I pick her. So, any relation that you have with people, do you make eye contact? Are you friendly or are you more reserved and you want to, stay to yourself? Those are all different kinds of relationships. And I think that, you understanding how you want to relate with the world and how you want to relate with the people in your lives is very important. And I also think it behooves you to understand how the people you love want to be related to as well. So I think there's a give and take kind of learning that has to happen and some conversation and some growth and building together. I think there's you, there's them, and then there's that relationship in between you. That's something that you build and grow and create together.
Wonderfully said. That's exactly it. So, this is something where when we magnetize towards what it is that we need in that relationship from this side to that side all together, there is something really truly amazing that happens there. Now, Tina, this has been fantastic. And so everyone go out and get that book, Loved. And there she is. Right there. Read off that amazing subtitle for us.
So it's called Loved: The Key to Unlocking Your True Potential and Living an Authentic Life You Love.
Right. And you all can have it. Tina says.
You all can buy it. I'd
all-
love to hear your feedback. I'd love to talk about it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. And we hope everyone's enjoyed this evening. And we will talk again soon. Thank you for being a part of the Beacon of Light podcast this evening. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you.